I'm Eric, and this is my business partner and wife, Michelle, and we own Untamed Feast, which is a Canadian wild food company, mostly dealing with Canadian wild mushrooms, but other great wild foods also. What's actually sort of fitting with the Ukrainian background of this is actually my Ukrainian grandmother used to come up. We grew up middle of nowhere in interior BC, and she grew up in Innisfree and learned to pick a couple different kinds of mushrooms there. And she would come out every fall and kind of drag me around picking shaggy manes and puffballs and some of the more easy common species. And so it just was kind of part of the process when Grandma came in early September.
Eric and I both had this childhood experience of going into the bush and picking wild things. I despised it as a little girl. You probably loved it. You're a bit more adventurous of a family. But fast forward 20-some years later, as adults, Eric was in forestry and I was working with Parks Canada. And so we were both spending a tremendous amount of time outside. And we went picking mushrooms. So typically in big mushroom producing regions, there will be buyers who are set up for export. And it became really clear to us that huge quantities of these wild foods were being exported, perhaps passing first through major urban centers to be served in very fancy restaurants, which most people can't afford. And we just thought, what about the regular person who wants to, or who doesn't know about these foods, or who maybe wants to try them, but is not going to go to the fancy restaurant? So we decided to try to start getting these wild foods into people's homes, into the homes of Canadians.
Mm-hmm. And then, we started the business a long time ago, probably over 14 years ago in BC. And we did well in BC. And when we moved to Alberta for family, was the main driver, the business actually really started to take off quite a bit more. And we started to realize that, wow, there's a lot of mushroom loving
prairie folk,
which of course the original settlers and whatnot, a lot of Ukrainian and Polish people. And I think there was a bit of a thirst there for it.
Yeah, and a surprising result to us. Even people would tell us all the time, you moved from BC to Alberta, and there's a lot of mushrooms here. The season is shorter, but there are plenty of mushrooms here, and there's like an emotional imprint here that our European elders still, their memory still, how many times has someone come up to our booth and said, oh, this is what Grandma makes for Christmas, or this is what my Baba used to do, or the Ukrainians have all their little cream recipes with dill, and they're always asking us for smurzi and pipenke, and they're using the Ukrainian terms. So it just shocked us how people here actually might even consume more mushrooms than the West Coasters, I think.
Wild mushrooms.
Yeah. They're less afraid of it. So Europeans really celebrate mushrooms, as do Asians. A lot of the newer Canadians just have no clue and are quite afraid. Whereas there's this highly emotional, fond memory and like the taste. They remember the taste, the smelling, and the picking of their grandparents doing it.
Absolutely.
But the best tip for beginners is get your grandparents, or if your parents, if they're still alive, if they're from the 30s to the 50s, they will know that is the best way.
Yeah, having somebody put the mushroom in your hand and say, "This is this." I mean, it really relaxes the nervous system too, because you shouldn't be picking a mushroom if you have to look it up, like to consume it. There's not really any mushrooms you have to worry about touching and then like touching your mouth or anything. But there's only a few species that'll really harm you here, but there's tons of species that'll make you sick, and there's tons of species that'll just be like edible but not incredible. So you have a small fraction of the 4,000 to 5,000 mushrooms in the boreal forest. You only need to learn 10. Okay, plus maybe 2 that could kill you. So that isn't that big of a deal. You don't have to know every little brown mushroom growing on the ground. You just need to to know the good ones. The company Untamed Feast, or untamedfeast.com online. If you're not in the Edmonton area, purchase our stuff online. Within the Alberta area, your specialized private grocery stores, the Italian markets, the Sunterras, the Friesen Brothers. There's select Save-On Foods, select Sobeys, select co-ops. These are listed on the website. Social media, same thing, Untamed Feast, whether it's Facebook, Instagram.
St. Albert Farmers Market.
St. Albert Farmers Market in season.
Perhaps here in the future, COVID put our storefront hours to an absolute minimum.
This was supposed to open early March,
mid-March.
Mid-March.
But if you have a special order request, you can make an appointment with us directly. Watch the website for news of maybe some foraging classes or something like that. Yeah, so we just want to thank the Ukrainian community for supporting our business and being in love with mushrooms. And we hope we can revive that sentiment within you and your family and get you back out in the woods, especially these days when we're all cooped up a little too much.